All right, everybody, if you don't mind quieting down, we're going to get this conversation started. I am joined by Kevin Mayer, who is a household name in Hollywood and in the media industry. Kevin was a longtime Disney executive. He started his own company called Candle Media. And you might not have heard of Candle. You probably heard if you're here. But you definitely know what Candle owns because either you or your kids or your friends use Candle brands and products. Kevin, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Give everyone just a quick 30 seconds from your own POV. The brands that you own, I just said everyone probably knows them. Give everyone a quick rundown.
Well, the brands that, if you're a parent of young kids, you know Cocomelon, Blippi, Little Angel, a lot of the most popular kids IP on the internet and now on streaming too. It's a company that was founded with taking YouTube IP, making it great, making it the most popular it can be with various techniques, and then multi-platforming it. So if you're a Cocomelon fan, for instance, it has 200 million plus or minus subscribers on YouTube right now, just in English language. It was the #1 show on Netflix. What we did is we took these little 3 to 7 minute programs, put them into 1 hour compilations, licensed it to Netflix, and from 2021 to today, it was the most watched show on Netflix around the world. And the second most watched show, I think, was NCIS, and then Grey's Anatomy. I mean, it's a huge hit. So it has a huge amount of reach. It's, I think, very enriching content and a nice thing to be looking after and stewarding. And then we have Hello Sunshine also, which is Reese Witherspoon's company. You've probably seen many of the shows that we produce. They're broadly distributed on Netflix and Amazon and elsewhere and Apple TV. So those are the two big brands that we have at Candle.
We're here to talk about trusted content. One of the challenges when you have a brand that's such a loyal following on one platform is ensuring that you can create authenticity and stay true to the brand when you bring it to other places. How were you able to do that in taking a YouTube show, putting it on Netflix, and not losing what it was originally all about?
Well, that was quite easy because we just took the same programs. They were literally the same programs that are on for free on YouTube, repackaged in a very simple way without there's no through line on stories. It's just independent stories that we had on YouTube, and just made 3 hours a season. Every season we produce about 3 hours of content. There were 3 one-hour episodes. They were exactly what we have on YouTube, and it just works really, really well.
But does that work as well across your other brands? Hello Sunshine, thinking about taking TikToks and making a book club?
No, it does not work as well there. One of the main thesis I had when we created Candle was that we look at multiple different audience verticals and create a similar flywheel for each of them. And the flywheel, as simply as I can describe it, is social media storytelling coupled with traditional media storytelling, and by that I mean film and TV length programming, coupled with commerce that the social media component really generates. And that comes from I ran TikTok briefly after Disney, and that comes from my experience at Disney and TikTok, thinking that we could take both of those paradigms, put them together, and make something new out of it, a more modern media company. And a big part of that is commerce. So that was our vision. With Hello Sunshine, we had a show called The Home Edit, which some of you might know is a Netflix show, and it's about a company that helps you organize your home. And they have products and services to do that. They had a show about that, there are many home improvement shows that work well. This is on Netflix, now it's on ABC actually. And we also bought the company, The Home Edit, behind it that does these services. And so we thought that was a flywheel that we could create there with products, services, social media, because the founders of The Home Edit are very big on social media. That was like almost the one show that worked, and that was it. So all the other shows, they're great shows, Daisy Jones and the Six, The Morning Show, you've probably seen many of these shows. They're just shows, and they don't really have a social media component, and they certainly don't have a commerce component to them. So we have a great production entity in Hello Sunshine, but it wasn't an expansive redefinition of media the way I really wanted to see it. On the other hand, Moonbug, which again is the Cocomelon, that's different because that, instead of starting in traditional media, it starts on social media. It starts on YouTube, and it's already digitally native, and it's already the reach was already so large, and the ability to communicate on a two-way basis with audiences, and especially parents, of course, of the kids. These kids, 1-year-olds, don't communicate much online. But the parents, there's a lot of co-viewing. 50 to 70% of all Cocomelon viewing is viewed by parents as well as the kids. that naturally lends itself to commerce and to licensing and to creating toys and plush and clothing that's branded Cocomelon. So we had the content part, we had the social media storytelling component, and then again we repackaged the social media to get onto traditional media. So that Moonbug is the real manifestation of the concept that I had in mind in forming Candle Media. So it's kind of bifurcated.
So let's walk through that. If the original concept that you had in mind has now shifted, what does that mean for the future of Candle and the brands? Do you take Moonbug and spin it out and make it its own company and IPO it? Do you sell the other entities? Does Candle itself go public? Like, what does the future mean if that thesis has changed?
That's a good question. If you could tell me, I'd appreciate it. But we're kind of working through that. We had intended, again, for Candle to be an integrated operating company with different audience verticals, all approaching it in a similar way. And it really hasn't happened that way. So we're now more or less 2 companies, really 3. We have another company called Attention, which just does social media campaigns, and they're a very, very good company. I'm glad you said
They are
indicated that you like them.
Yes.
So we have like 3 independent companies now that are operating in different ways. We have Hello Sunshine and a few other live action studios that are just production companies at this point, feeding the streaming content ecosystem, and doing so, I think, at a high quality branded basis. We have Attention, which is doing its thing on a standalone basis and doing very, very well. They're exceeding the plan that we had for them, and they're doing great. And we have Moonbug. So we're owned by Blackstone, which is a private equity company, and whenever Blackstone invests in something or any other private equity firm, they need to exit at some point. So the original plan was to have this integrated Candle Media either IPO or sell to a media company, whatever the disposition would be. Now it's looking more likely that there's 3 separate entities, and each will find their own home ultimately, whether through IPO or through a sale.
And just quick to follow up on that, because I do think Moonbug is such a special case in that everyone is trying to chase that flywheel that Moonbug has perfected. Like, where do you ultimately envision that company would go? Like, does an IPO seem like it's the most natural fit? Selling it to a Disney? Like, what do you think would be the best future for the IP?
I could see either evolution happening. Certainly, it has the scale and the platform capability to extend itself into other audiences as well. Beyond small kids, it get to older kids, it can get to even teenagers. I mean, you could see taking the Moonbug model, YouTube first, then a multi-platform around that IP. You can see it happening in a bunch of different verticals, and Moonbug could become an expanded version of what it is today, and actually fulfill the initial vision of Candle Media itself. Yep. And I think that's one possibility. It can get much bigger. It could IPO. Obviously, a Disney or a Warner's, any traditional media company could own it. That would make a ton of sense with the IP that we have and the reach and the kind of the uniqueness of the business model that we have. So either an acquisition or a digital company could own it. You can see an Apple or a Google also owning it ultimately. So either through a sale or through an IPO, I think that's its future.
Yep. We have time for just one more question. We're here to talk about trust, and when it comes to trust in the news business, I'm going to talk to Emma Tucker, the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, after this. It's been very hard to convince brands sometimes to invest in news. We appreciate MasterCard for investing in us. Attention is a really unique asset because it is sort of a social advocacy play that plays and taps into news culture, but brands love it. Like, why do they have that trust between brands in a way that I think a lot of companies have not been able to crack?
Well, because Attention is a bit of a hybrid. It was a publisher to start off, making original content attached to brands, and so they were sort of branded content, if you will. And they've kind of morphed into being more of an agency, a digital agency, frankly. So instead of just making original productions like they used to, they make productions at the behest of corporations and companies and causes and the government. And one of the biggest clients that Attention has is TikTok, and they make TikToks about TikTok for TikTok. It's a very meta type of situation. But if you know the trust and safety channel on TikTok, yep. the Attention manages that for them and creates the videos for them. So they're as trusted as the commission that they get to create content allows them to be. We don't take commissions that we feel would violate their long history of being a very trusted advocacy publisher. So they've kind of morphed a little bit, but their content is, I think, incredibly trustworthy. They don't do anything that's edgy or that would cause me to be up at night and sleepless or anything like that. And it's a pretty controlled environment. So that's pretty simple.
And very viral, the Arnold
Very
Schwarzenegger
viral,
video,
yeah.
something everyone should watch about the Russia war. Just a few key takeaways here. I think when we talk about trust, one thing I really like about Candle is that it is trust and IP amongst every generation, which I think is hard to pull off. You were saying that you thought originally the thesis of Candle was sort of one integrated operating company, but now it feels like the right fit is 3 separate entities. You have Hello Sunshine and the live action studios business. You have Attention. You have Moonbug, and all 3 of them could have very different paths. And I'm excited to see what those paths are. Possibly an IPO for 1, maybe 2. And then lastly, just thinking a little bit about this flywheel effect. I do think you bring up a good point, which is that it is easier to start with a social media audience these days and create the flywheel around that than to start necessarily with premium content and try to grow that social media audience. Kevin Mayer, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right. That was a quick one.